Welcome to your practice. It's wonderful to be here with you. We're going to begin on our back today. So you can take a moment to recline onto your back with a little something under your head. So if you're new to class, that would be just a little blanket, a bath towel folded up, or if you have a paperback book nearby, that would also work. And then we're going to recline onto the back. And just hug the knees in and maybe roll from side to side, or just scissor the knees a little bit, just to see if your hip joints will let go of the legs and let them just swish swash around in the hip socket. And then we'll put the feet down. I will also add, if being on the ground like this isn't comfortable for you, you can do what we're doing is called constructive rest, but you can do it against a chair, like a dining room chair, maybe with just a little pillow behind your back or sitting against the wall. We're just trying to give some support to the back and let the spine have its integrity and support so that the arms and legs they usually tense or grip, and we want them to unwind a little bit. So we'll take a couple minutes here for our centering meditation, just allowing yourself to, I'm going to sit up, arrive, letting yourself arrive for the practice, maybe looking around the room that you're in, mainly as a means to let your eyes be a little more, just like we wanted the legs to move a little more easily in the hip sockets. It would be nice for the eyes to be able to move a little more easily in their sockets. I find that just in our times, with doing a lot of maybe computer activity or other holiday preparation activities now, our eyes might just be a little overly focused, overly tense. So allowing them to be free, allowing the jaw to soften, this like the lower teeth and the chin, that area, the jaw, to release away from the rest of the head. You might find when you investigate there with your curiosity that jaw is locked or tight. So can you just soften it a little bit? We're not trying to force anything in this class. When the eyes and the jaw can soften up top here, the head more freely balances on top of the spine. Of course, if you're resting on your back, you might think, well, why does that matter? But even when we're on our back, the head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds. And if it's locked down on top of the spine, that sort of affects the quality of experience we have throughout the rest of the body. It affects just the level of strain in the body. When we stand up, in particular, the head balance will affect how well we balance on the ground, standing, moving. So just want to throw that idea out there because it seems sort of far away to think, oh, my balance is affected by how I'm using my head, eyes, and jaw. But that's just sort of our first place of curiosity when it comes to our integration and balance. So I'll give you just a little bit more time here to just notice whatever you notice. And if you're new to the practice, it might be that you don't notice that much. just noticing that is something. We're just trying to turn up the volume on our awareness and our curiosity about our internal experience. By doing that, we're present, not thinking about the past or the future that'll creep in naturally, and we just keep abiding and returning to the present. The breath can come and go. Just that little bit of invitation might make you aware of whether you're holding the breath or not, but we're not forcing it either. The diaphragm is just this beautiful muscle that is responsible for inflating the lungs and then deflating the lungs through its excursion up and down, sort of mimic what it looks like. So it lines the whole base of the ribs all the way around the back, separates the upper torso from the lower torso. And just has this little, on the inhale, it goes down and parachutes out. And on the exhale, it comes up and pushes the air out of the lungs. That's probably even too much information. All you're doing is just letting it be. Each breath might be a different duration. The inhale may be long and the exhale may be short during one round. It's all good. And then I will draw your attention one more time to the pelvis. We briefly visited there when we invited the legs to move inside the hips. But your pelvis is shaped like a big a big bowl. It's two bones. That's sort of the container for the bottom of your spine, just like the head perches on top of the spine. Now, at the other end of the spine, the pelvic bowl, where in fact the back wall of the bowl is your sacrum and tailbone, the lowest parts of the spine. But that bowl really is grounding when it can rest. Or I should say it's really grounding to our system when that bowl can rest. So just letting yourself rest in the bony weight there. And then legs are still easily standing in the hip sockets, or maybe you've straightened one or both legs. But then think of the bottoms of your feet. You want the bottoms of the feet to just have this idea. It's just a thought that they might soften or expand or be just more malleable. And like I said, it's just a thought. You don't have to create anything like a movement or do something. Just the thought will influence the nervous system and what's happening there. And then just let all the details go, coming back to a sense of your whole self. And then I invite you now to take a moment to set a theme or intention that's personal to you. Maybe you are curious about just having compassion today, or you have curiosity. Usually a word or adjective will drop into mind about something you'd like to focus on thematically in class for yourself. And you can also dedicate your practice to someone, maybe yourself or someone else who comes to mind. And then let your eyes open if they happen to have closed, and let them just wander around the room again. Notice, do they dart and do that very quickly, or can they just maybe pick 3 objects? Like I have a mobile hanging from my ceiling, so I see a little bit of green from that, object 1. And then if I shift over here, I see the light on the ceiling. And then I see a picture of a flower. So I took my time just taking in all three of those objects, and now I'm going to let that go. So now that we've freed the top again, the head, we're gonna just do a couple more things on our back or in your chair if that's where you happen to be. Bring your attention to your feet and notice, do you think of each foot as like one sort of glommed together entity? Each foot has 26 bones and several muscles and tendons, 5 toes, just many articulations. And so maybe just, without knowing the anatomical details, just think of it instead of one foot, many of these intricate, beautiful parts. And then I'm going to invite you to draw one knee in towards your chest. And then let that leg swing in the socket. You'll feel if you just subconsciously or semi-consciously grip everything, because then it feels like movement is hard and the leg is not just swinging in the socket. There's muscular tension, but you can let that go if you think about it. And then as you let this right, whatever knee brought to you, let it go. See if you can think about how many bones I told you the foot has. So we're going to toe, ball, heel the foot down so that it doesn't land as one big mass. It lands in a couple different little articulations, like a chain link laying down. And then we'll draw the other knee towards you. But drawing the knee towards you doesn't mean your spine or your neck or your chin or your jaw, and nothing has had to grip. It should just be this free movement of the leg inside the hip joint. So that might not be true the first time you try it, but then if you try it a few more times, with these thoughts that I'm feeding you, you can change the experience. And then it's not just one foot that's going to pancake down. To the best of your ability, you're just going to toe ball heel or maybe ball heel, just it'll be a surprise when your foot hits the ground because it's not stiff. Sometimes just that alone will energize the bottoms of the feet and the hip joints. See if you notice anything there. And then I'm going to have you shift. It's going to seem like you're swaying your knees from side to side, but really you're rolling your pelvic bowl just ever so slightly to the left so that the big toe side of your right foot gets more weight and the pinky toe side of your left foot gets more weight. But then the knees have also shifted, but they're doing that almost in response to us rolling a little bit to the left. All these movements are going to be like so subtle and a little bit of nothing. So just give yourself a chance to listen and drop in. So now I'm going to roll and invite you to do so as well. The pelvis to the right slightly, and then the pinky edge of the right foot gets weight, and the big toe side of the left foot gets weight. And then you're going to continue that pattern of just rolling like an inch to the left, an inch to the right. Maybe I'm not good with measurements. Maybe it's a couple inches, but and then it might be a bigger movement. But we started small so that you could notice the details, that it's not just sort of thrusting the knees from side to side, that there's a shift from the pelvis and then to either side of the foot, depending on which way you're going. But sometimes the shoulder wants to grip or the jaw again. But now I'm moving my forearms from side to side. And I should add, anytime something is new in our practice, or maybe you're new to the practice, you can always that's the beauty of being at home. You can just sit up and watch and ask for the recording later so that you can do it again with me. My spine is stable, but now we're bringing dynamic movement into our stability. Just ebbing and flowing the limbs from side to side, but really the pelvis, the feet, and even the head, if you wanted to turn the head, these three key places are starting to move and roll with their weight. So nice, especially if you've been holding tension. Hopefully you feel something dialing out here. And then you're welcome to maybe semicircle the knees, or just scissor the knees, or just be still for a few more minutes. Not a few more minutes, a few more moments, to let all that settle. To sort of really dial deep and listen to yourself is a very, in a way, it's a very advanced practice. It's a very nice gift to give yourself. But sometimes it just takes a little patience to get beyond the surface level of things. So offering yourself that. Now you can swing your legs forward to sit up, or you might roll. I'm going to roll to the side and pivot up to a seat. And we'll take a moment to sit down together. Not sitting probably directly on the floor. So grab a cushion, just sit, like even a sofa cushion would work. Just sit higher on, fold up your blanket, just so that you can sit up and be on your sitting bones. And we never quite land on our sitting bones. Sometimes we land like on our tailbone, just in a little bit of a slump. The pelvis would be slanting backwards. So go ahead and walk one sitting bone back and then the other sitting bone back. So that's the bottom of your pelvis, shaped like a rocker. Go back, crisscrossing the legs or putting them out in front of you so that you can really just be sitting. Your sitting bones become like feet now to support your spine. So that pelvic bowl is now upright, vertical, and just dropping into the earth. So let's see if we can move into the left sitting bone. I'm going to mirror you. It's going down and just letting your whole body go diagonal this way, and then we'll go the other way. It should feel like you're bouncing from one half of your pelvis to the other. But if we're used to moving with a lot of tension, you're going to feel like you're hauling yourself over with effort. But it's really just the springiness in the bones, such that when we go this way, put your left hand down to the ground, or if you're more flexible, even your forearm could go down, and you're just sort of leaning this way, but your sitting bone or your pelvis on the side there is supporting you, such that you could feel this sort of rockability. And then we're going to come up and just one time rock to the other side. So you're not holding yourself up. You're actually going to go down into the ground with forearm, or just the hand is fine like that. But just really release into the ground. Don't hold yourself up. Okay, and then come back up to both sitting bones and notice how your balance distribution has changed. I just feel more grounded, even though I was probably doing okay when we started. Just we can always refresh these directions. Now that we're upright, can the head freely balance on top of the spine, sort of like you're bobbling? So eyes are free, jaw is free, and we're going to just look around a little bit. So if I look to the left, my nose swings to the left, but the back of my head has to swing to the right in order for that ball to stay on top of the spine. And then if I look the other way, the back end has to swing behind me while I turn my nose to the right. Good. And then we'll release, shrugging the shoulders up to the ears and letting the shoulders release. And we'll shrug the shoulders up to the ears again. And when the shoulders release, they don't shove down, they just sort of settle down. Settle however they like. Down might not be the direction. Elbows are easy. Let's join the hands together in front of the heart. Each hand also has 26 bones, which is interesting that most of our bones are, like half our bones are in our hands and feet. So it just shows the fine detail that's available in these, in the two hands and the 2 feet. So see if you can just sort of invite there to be more availability, therefore, in your hands. Sometimes our hands get tense, just like our feet. So you might do like spider fingers. You could just swim. hands in the air. I know Zoom doesn't like me to go too fast with that movement. So let's swim the arms around. Okay. Let's now take the left hand up next to the face, but don't stiffen the fingers or the wrists, and just sort of swim this arm up as far as it wants to go. It might go out to the side a little bit, but your arm is sort of growing out of between your shoulder and your hand. And then we're going to side bend over to the right and come up. Palm turns away from you, and you're going to swan dive the arm. Fingertips touch the ground. Arm is going to come up, palm faces you, and we'll side bend to the right again. Think of something that inspires you, maybe to smile behind your eyes. Exhale, swan dive the arm out. Maybe one or two more times, palm turns towards you, side bend. That pelvic bowl is still sturdy for you, grounding the whole thing, like 2 feet. And then we'll swan dive the arms out, but it's like the fingers are energizing out and away from you so that this arm isn't dead weight. Sometimes it gets so busy or tense that it sort of it drags us down, which would affect the integrity of the body. And so just know, I can just see looking at the feedback camera that my shoulders look a little different just from that one little exploration. See if you feel a difference in yourself. We're just going to give it a moment to integrate. You might think of your intention. Left hand is going to come up next to the face. And then you're going to swim the arm up. I'm sorry, it's your right arm now. I'm trying to mirror you. I always forget. But it doesn't matter as long as you do both arms. And then we're going to come over. The palm is facing down. And then you're going to come up. Fingers are lively as you swan dive the arm that way. Fingertips, take a moment to land on the ground so that you're grounded. And then we'll come up into the side bend. And then swan dive, and you'll repeat that one or two more times on your own. And you take your time. Like I said, going slow is a real gift to your nervous system, but it takes a little bit to be able to access that sometimes. One of the reasons being that our habits are quick fire, right? If I always sort of walk up the stairs and I have pain in my knee, it's because whatever pattern I have for doing that movement is just wired into me. So if I keep moving fast up the stairs, I won't be able to change that pattern. But if I slow it down, I'll be able to retrain the nervous system. And so that's a lot of what we're up to in this class that combines yoga and Alexander technique principles. So just take a moment to let that integrate. I feel like today I'm going slower than usual, even just because it's the holidays and it's getting cold outside. It's just nice to dial it down for the nervous system. I'm imagining a beach ball that I'm holding now with my arms. The arms are rounded around that ball. It's almost like ballet arms. If you ever took ballet, elbows drop slightly rather than picking up like that. We're trying to let it's almost like your back is still on the ground, like it was draped in that resting posture we did. We want the back to be sort of supported and upright. And then we'll put the fingertips down. Maybe it's just the middle fingers that release. And then arms come up. So can the arms feel lighter? And your head just bobbles on top. And then we'll go ahead and release. And then let's turn now onto the hands and knees. Coming in, well, let's just come onto the knees actually. You're welcome to put a cushion under your knees if we won't be here long, but at any time you need support, you can go full your mat, just stick that under the knees. Toes can be flat or curled under slightly if that's better for your foot muscles. And then our pelvis often gets stuck, especially if you sit a lot. But we need it to move in order to be integrated and balanced throughout. So see if, remember earlier we were on just swinging our legs in the hip sockets while the pelvis stayed still. But now the legs almost aren't doing as much, but the pelvis is going to rotate around the legs. You're going to stick your butt out and send your pelvis back. And notice how that sends you into this tabletop with your spine. It'll feel unusual if you're not used to moving your pelvis. You'll want to stick out your neck, tighten your neck and stick out your head. But try to get the pelvis and the head to counterbalance each other. Hands come down now for table. Push the ground away. See what it's like to just sort of be heavy and sagged in the arms, and now push the ground away. It's like you have 4 feet now, your 2 hands and then your 2 legs. And from here, dome your spine, looking under you. Look out into the room, opening the heart. Dome your spine, looking under you. Open the heart. Last time, dome the spine. Exhale. Head dangle, shoulders relax. Inhale, open the heart. Good. Come to a neutral spine. There's just a slight engagement maybe between the pubic bone and the navel, so your spine isn't sagging. The low back is not overarched. So there is an arch there, but we don't want it to be overarched. We have our tabletop back, and then ever so slowly, sneak that left leg out, and then maybe curl the toes under. So you didn't flip the leg out by hammocking your spine. That's how we often cheat to do that. But we want to sneak the leg out and curl the toes under so that you're using the glutes and the leg muscles, which will be, we're going to do some balancing later. And so that'll be important to activate these muscles on the back of the leg and the back of the pelvis to help us be strong in our balance. So just stay here for a second and notice, in order for this left leg to be extended, the other 3 limbs have to be sturdy. They're not tense, but they're toned. And then maybe even come onto the fingertops of the right arm, or if it feels comfortable to extend the right arm long. Now the left hand and the right knee really need to push into the ground in order for you to balance here just on 2 limbs. And then we'll release that side. Go ahead and come back up for a moment. Just noticing what's true for you now. I can tell that 2 limbs worked hard in that previous pose, and then the other 2 limbs got stretched long. So we'll now seesaw again and reverse that. We'll extend the right leg long. And if you feel like you did that by drooping the back, think about your tabletop and just sort of sneak the leg long. You should actually feel a little like engagement or burning in the glutes and the hamstrings if you did that correctly. It might, sometimes we don't notice sensation, so don't worry if you don't. So stay here. The other 3 limbs are strong in order for this right leg to be extended. Maybe the left arm will now extend, but then that right hand really has to push the ground away. And then we'll release. Okay. Give your right hand a break if it needs it. We're gonna extend the left leg long one more time. And this time, without drooping your belly, try to lift the leg just to hip height. And then stay there, or just do a couple slow moving leg curls, which when you go slow, it makes them harder. It makes it feel like there's a weight on your ankle, and we're just engaging those glutes and hamstrings again. And then you can do the same with the right leg. Just either holding the leg at hip height without drooping the belly, or maybe doing a couple leg curls. I can really feel those muscles activating. It's just so easy not to use those muscles on the back and to sort of collapse or slump our way around. I think we all do that. And now we'll extend both legs long into plank. Unless that's too much, just keep your knees on the ground. And then go ahead and drop the knees and just sit back as far as possible into like a child's pose, or come into down dog if you're ready for that. We'll come forward to plank, drop the knees, glide back in order to just lower onto your belly. Make a pillow out of your hands. And make sure your hands and forearms are far enough away. Like if you have them too close, it's going to jam your shoulders too close to your chest. So just send them out a little bit. Send your elbows wide. I realize some people don't like to be on their belly, so you could turn your head to the side, but we're just trying to, just like we let our back have all that support earlier in constructive rest, we're trying to let our belly have a little bit of support. And then from here, you're going to draw your elbows towards your hips isometrically. They won't really move that much. You're just hugging them that way. Hands go just slightly forward. And then your face is no longer touching the ground or your hands. It's just going to come off the ground without throwing your head back. So you should feel some muscles engaging in your upper back, underneath the armpits, maybe. And then you could walk each elbow back a little more so they're more under you. And isometrically now try to slide your forearms forward. They won't move, but you're just making that action. And then widening the shoulders, maybe looking out into the room that you're in without throwing your head back. So the head still bobbles like a ball on top of your spine. Often we do a back bend or we look up by crunching the neck and throwing the head back. But remember, we want the head to bobble on top of the spine. It has many vantage points that it can then look and bobble without strain. And hopefully you feel the belly opening a little bit and the back extending. Good, we'll go ahead and release. Forehead down. From here, either bring the hands next to the chest so you can push the ground away and come into table, or if that's too much, then just use your forearms to sort of crawl your way back until you get enough support. And then in fact, we'll come up onto the knees, shifting weight into the left knee so the right foot can step forward. Once again, the belly doesn't need to spill out. We're just gonna glide the legs forward. Press your thigh away. Your right foot is stamping the ground, as is your back shin. Head is free. Good. And then we'll lower, 10 finger tops down, curl the back toes under, lunge. If the ground feels too far away in the future, you might get some blocks that you could put your hands up on so it doesn't feel so squishy for your chest. And then we'll take it back either to child's pose or down dog. If you're doing down dog, you're pressing the ground, you're sliding your hands isometrically forward again, trying to press the ground away and get this diagonal length, sitting bones to fingertips. From here, we'll roll forward to plank. Plank is high. Drop your knees. We'll glide, move the pelvis back. And then left foot is going to step forward into lunge, dropped lunge. Coming up. Remember, I was saying we tend to leave the pelvis behind and spill out through the belly to come forward. You're going to move the pelvis with the legs forward and then just push your leg away so that you might have a little bit of this back bend going on, but it's not collapsed. It has a lot of support underneath and tonal quality. And then just dropping 10 finger tops to the ground, curl your right toes under, lunge. From here, we're gonna think of this back foot as a spring and maybe spring 1, 2, 3 times, or just one spring up to forward fold. And for forward fold, it's the same joint that it's the hip joint again, that we want to be folding from. So that's where the leg and the pelvis connect. And so if that feels tight or the spine feels tight, bend your knees like I'm doing so that you can just drape down. Feet are still releasing into the ground. So really let your feet melt into the ground. And then as you start to roll up, it might be that you feel your feet grip the ground, but they need to keep down into the ground. Legs are streaming into the ground because that's the bottom half of you. That's the base for the upper half to roll up. Just take a moment to arrive and see the room around you. Sometimes the arms get tense in the roll up just because they think they need to play a role, but they don't. And then let's do the roll up, roll down one more time. So we'll bend the knees this time, just a smidge. But then remember that drawbridge, you have to send your hips back, send your pelvis back. See, so now my knees are over my ankles. They're not forward of my ankles, which would cause knee pain. I've had to send this pelvis back in order to slide down now to roll forward. And then it's almost like I'm sitting down on a high stool. And that's there to support your spine as you now once again release your feet into the ground and slowly roll up. You could even sort of shimmy your shoulders and arms a little bit to cue them to let go. And then we'll arrive standing. Take a moment to think of your intention there and to stand equally on both feet. Ball the big toe, ball the pinky toe, and the heel all get weight distribution. So a lot of times we don't put weight in the heel, or maybe vice versa, but it's usually the heel. I usually find we're leaning forward a little bit. See if you can go back and forth now between the heel and the front half of the foot. So you're back here, and then it's the same thing we did earlier. The weight in your foot bones has to change so that you come forward. The ankle joint is free, so it seems like I'm leaning forward a little bit. And then if I just come back into my heels and see the horizon, there's just a back and forth there, which this will seem hard if you're used to just being a little more tense in the ankle joint, or not having done this before. So see what's true for you. If you're have been doing this for a while, this type of practice, you might see if you can circle the ankle joint. So you're not just going back and forth anymore. You're going side to side and a little bit back. But that's all coming from your feet and ankles. You can sort of see that my whole body is just following what's happening in the feet and ankles. I'm not moving my hips or doing something to force the movement from up top. Good. So hands meet at the heart now. We find that equal weight distribution once again. Bend the knees and the hips back, forward fold. Head dangles. The right foot is going to step back into lunge. Left leg follows to down dog, or maybe you're on the hands and knees and table. Inhale, come forward to plank, which is a rolling through the foot. So we're really opening those feet today. Drop the knees, glide back in order to, your spine is like a springboard, spring forward, hitting the deck there, belly. Inhale, baby cobra, or maybe you'll put your forearms back down for sphinx. Back down like this. And then take your time so that you don't yank on anything to come back to table or down dog. Once you've securely landed there, you don't feel rushed. You're going to step your right foot forward, which might, in this instance, mean putting your hand around your ankle and helping the foot forward. And then left foot comes forward, forward fold. We sit in that imaginary little chair just a little bit. So you're sticking your hips out again. And then feet release down, hands come to the heart. We'll just go a little bit quicker now, just because we've been building these principles. Bend the knees and the hips back, forward fold. Remember, you can always watch. That would be helpful this time around. Left foot steps back. Right foot follows, downward facing dog. Inhale, roll forward to plank. So much tone in the arms because they're pushing the ground away. Drop the knees. And so here we often just sort of like say a prayer and collapse to the ground and push up. But really it's this springy from the back forward and down. And then it's just like this bouncy landing. It doesn't feel strainful. So do that again. We'll spring back. The head stays connected all the way down to the pelvis rather than, the jaw jutting forward, and you're just springing forward and down. Inhale through baby cobra or your back bend of choice. And then we'll go back to rest and down dog or maybe child's pose. From here, left leg swings in the hip socket. And then the foot and pelvis, the whole left side steps forward into lunge. But at first you might just get here and then help things move forward there on that left side. Right foot steps forward, forward fold. Inhale, trace the center line. Exhale, hands to the heart. We'll release the arms and just remind them to be free. They can swing. Let's stand. I'm going to stand to face you. You can stand as you like. Maybe instead of mountain pose, maybe come into a little bit of an A stance. See what's comfortable for you. You'll have to figure this out. I'm just going to take my hands, they're like dangling, and then trace an 8 in the air. Like a figure 8. And then after a moment or two, it might be that you notice that your pelvis, your rib cage, and your body can follow that. I don't find it goes well when I try to explain exactly how to do this. But I just started with like my hands sort of scooping the air. And then if I don't stiffen the rest of my body, even my head sort of wants to, I'm just exaggerating it a little bit for you to see, but my ribs are free. There's different ways to, you can exaggerate different bits of the movement if like, oh, my ribs they always seem glued together, or, and now I'm going to go low with the figure 8. And I can even look down at my feet and do this without, my head just nods like by my nose tipping. I haven't dropped my whole head hanging from my lowest neck vertebra. And then we'll let that go. So that was a little shift in balance that we were playing with. I didn't mention it to you, but the whole time we were doing that whole pattern, the foot bones were changing, right? Which ones got weight. But if they were locked, then that wouldn't work. And we'll just sort of maybe move now into a swaying from side to side. So similar to what we did earlier on the ground, over here, the pinky toe edge has more weight on one foot and the big toe edge more weight on the other foot. And then it switches. So this is just play. I'm pointing these things out to you, but I'd love for you just to feel. And then see, I'm just drawn to do that. Figure 8 again. That's what happens when we walk. We have a spiral that's sort of part of that figure 8. We don't, walk straight. We cross pattern. So that's just sort of fun to get those spirals going. So now we'll stay in this A stance, or whatever stance you've chosen. And what if we sort of thought about drifting to one side again, but this time the heel of the other leg, I didn't lift it. which would have a muscular look. It just sort of came off the ground because I came over here like we did on the sitting bones earlier. And then maybe that foot even just comes off the ground. But you're not lifting the foot off the ground. It just sort of, this one's really in the ground. So it just happens that the other one happened to dangle off the ground. And then now we're going to drift to the other side. And depending on your balance, you might not ever leave the ground with the second foot. I'm just showing you the mechanics of how that would happen. See, this is my one side tends to not get it as easily as the other side. So I'm forcing that a little bit. I'm going to just keep giving this hip strength. Good. You might just play with that for a few moments. Just one more time to each side. It has to be slower though, because it's then we want to end gain. We want to get it. So we try to lift the other leg up, and that throws our balance off, because our balance is not achieved by lifting off the ground. That's very precarious. It's about going into the side that's supporting you. So it almost just feels like I'm hanging out over here and strengthening this hip. Don't get me wrong, the glutes and the hamstring, all that musculature we spoke of on this side is stronger. And so if it's not strong as of yet, it'll take some time to cultivate that strength. But we have to sort of do the right movements in order to cultivate the strength. And I'm just playing around here. You can play around with your balance if you've been practicing for longer. There's just so many options. If you've been doing the practice for longer is what I meant there. And so then you may be done with both sides. I've been yapping along here. I'm just playing with the other side. This is not as strong for me. So just playing with being free in the other three limbs while the one is sturdy. Good. And then we'll go ahead and release. Let's bring our feet more into mountain pose, or you could even join the feet together once you've regrouped. And we're gonna crisscross the arms. They can alternate which one goes in front. Notice if hopefully they're feeling a little lighter, a little more free. And then you're gonna take them into, I always get that a little off these days. Take them into a T. And then we'll let them go. And take them into a T again. Fingers are energized to opposite walls. So this might be your exploration to ground the feet and let the arms go into a T. You could add balance again here. As the arms make this when to go out, you come onto the balls of the feet, which takes strength in the lower legs. So don't fret if it doesn't. You might just pop up there and then come right back down. We're building. You might favor one foot and then have to really think about the other side. And then we'll just let that go and take a little walk as you like. Separating the feet a little wider now. This is always tricky to you have to sort of pay attention to yourself to figure this out. We want to bend the knees a little bit, but the knee still stays right over the ankle joint and is directed towards the middle couple toes there, rather than the knees turning in or going too far out, causing any knee. So it's not downward pressure on the knee, it's just a bend of the knee. You could even think of the knee as really bending from the back. It doesn't bend from the front. The locus of action is in the back. And so we want the springiness of the legs and the spine again. We'll bring either the arms around that imaginary ball or maybe into cactus arms for goddess pose. But don't spill out through the belly and chest to do goddess pose. It's almost like your legs and arms are all around this imaginary ball in a subtle way. Good. And then we'll swan dive the arms out as you come up. Two choices here now. Choice one is to go into goddess pose again without letting the knee go forward of the ankle. And then maybe some people like to just hold the ankle. This is a big stretch for the inner thigh. Coming here. You could also just do another goddess pose. But if you don't want to work the inner leg and you'd rather work the outer and back of the legs, then you can come more into a wide leg stance with the big toes turned in and send your pelvis back and your head forward so that you do more of a forward fold, wide leg forward fold. There's probably time for you to fit both in if you wanted to. But do that with a gentle pacing. And then we're going to isometrically hug the legs. And unless you were doing the previous pose, you'll just pop up. But if you're doing this wide leg stance, make your legs strong so that your back, again, your pelvis is just flipping around your legs to bring you up. And then we'll bring the legs together and I'll give you a moment we're going to meet in a seated position in a moment, or in fact, we might just come back to the ground, but go ahead and just take a little walk around your space to get the the legs and pelvis, everything just sort of working together again more dynamically. So how to get back to the ground using what we've learned. You might already be on the ground, but same thing, bend the knees, send the hips back, but this time the hips have to go way back and up so that the head can come down. You must crawl out onto the ground, reversing what we did earlier, blanket or pillow, paperback book. And you can take a moment to stretch your legs long or just one leg long, one leg bent. I always find the ground, I enjoyed the upright work, but the ground is always welcome once we wind it back down. And this class had more standing in it. We didn't do a seated portion as long as we might normally have done. I was drawn to work on some of the balance and integration in the upright. So now we'll do just a little reclined hip work and balancing. You're going to hug your right knee in, not too far. Maybe it's like this at a 90-degree angle. And then you're going to just turn and put the right Achilles heel on your left kneecap. The Achilles heel is that notch above your heel. See if that works for you. If there's a lot of, again, our culprit here that we're curious about is excess leg tension. It seems like that doesn't work, that it's impossible to balance like that. But if you just give yourself a moment to let go of trying a bit, you'll find that the bones sort of meet in that way. But if not today, then right ankle over left thigh works as well. We just don't want to force this knee out. You want to have the knee sort of turned in. But same thing, same theme that we've had. Just sway a little bit to the left, to the pinky toe edge of your left foot. And then the weight transfers through the foot such that you feel the big toe side now really stamping into the ground or meeting the ground. And then the legs are just going to follow what that foot on the ground is doing, right? That's the balance. If you go too far, you'll the foot can't maintain the balance and you sort of fall out of the pose. But for our purposes, we're just doing the swing. And no, what is the back of your pelvis doing? It's sort of rolling, hopefully, from side to side. It doesn't really require a lot of effort. You don't need to pull yourself over to each side. There's just this rolling that's available when we really release into the back. Jaw, same things. Jaw is free, eyes are free, neck is free. Good. And then we'll float the right leg up. If it'll go up, it might go forward instead, just to stretch the back line that we worked on for so much of today. Oh, and I meant to say when you were here, you could give a little squeeze to your legs coming in just to stretch the glutes and the hip rotators here. We'll stretch that. And then it's always the same. We don't abandon everything and flap our foot down like a pancake again. We're going to just let the legs swing out of the hip joint, toe ball heel, the foot to the ground. And now left Achilles heel comes to right kneecap, or maybe left ankle to right thigh, if that's better for today. And then just, if you let the bones settle, they will find the standing balance with each other. We usually are just fighting ourselves a bit. And then pinky edge of foot to big toe edge of foot. Can this top leg just cooperate and go for a ride? This, if you're right-handed, this side is probably easier for you to some extent because the right leg is in the driver's seat and the left leg is following. I find the other side a little hard. Sometimes the right leg doesn't want to follow. But the reason I keep saying the same things over again, and if you have any particular issues, injuries that you're working with, balance issues, the habit is just so strong. That pattern in your nervous system is so strong that's why it just takes a practice and attention to these details, and then this critical mass I find builds, and then you're just much clearer and balanced in your movement. That's why I study these practices. I've studied them for so long. So pause, and if you want to, you can hug your right thigh in. You'll just feel the hip stretch there on the left. And then maybe float the left leg up. Either here, wherever it's comfortable for the leg, just to get a little stretch. You might flex the ankle, pumping the heel out without tensing the top of your foot too much. And then same thing, leg swings from the hip, toe ball heel. Just taking a moment to let that integrate. If you're inspired to think of something that makes you smile behind your eyes, you can do that again. That just uplifts the upper palate, and maybe even a little M breath. Just so you feel that vibration in the throat. That's really nice for the vagus nerve. It's not forced. It's just, I felt to me like it might be available to all of us at this time. And then briefly, we'll just press into the feet and glide the knees forward. So you're not lifting your pelvis up. It'll just come up because your legs have activated one last time into bridge. If you have a lot of pillow under your head, you might take the pillow out at this time. So these glutes are activating to send you up there. And then you'll come back down. And then just come back to some sort of gentle settling movement, maybe swaying from side to side again, or a happy baby. Just something, just stretching the arms and legs. And we'll be transitioning into our final relaxation pose, where we just rest to let the practice be absorbed in the body. So feel free to put on socks or Stretch your legs out long. Maybe sometimes that pulls on the low back, so you might roll your blanket or put some that sofa cushion or pillows underneath your knees. But just taking time to make yourself feel comfortable, supported, and relaxed. Arms can fan away, or maybe you hug the arms to you. We'll just take a couple minutes now to rest. If you're watching the recording, you can hit pause and rest a little bit longer. I'll ring the bell when it's time for us to close. I hope you enjoy. You can begin to deepen your breath, inviting some movement and awareness to trickle through your body. Hopefully noticing a sense of being settled in yourself, your structure, while also taking in the space around you. And we'll take a moment to close the practice. So you're welcome to stay as you are if you feel quite cozy there, or you can pivot up to a seat as we did earlier, finding those sitting bones and support. Take a moment to remember your personal intention and your dedication. Notice the effects of the practice. As you leave the mat, I hope you take with you the benefits of our time together, including a sense of connection to yourself, sense of integration, and ease. Namaste.